Today is all about stress eating. We're going to be covering the definition, the causes, why you stress eat, different reasons to stress, why you stress eat, and then finally talking about a big picture, how to stop stress eating. Now, the most common situation I see in Silicon Valley is a computer engineer, computer programmer, and they come home at night and they can't stop eating. They're eating throughout the day. Little tiny things demanded stress, but not very much. And then at the end of the day, it just all piles up and they really can't stop eating. Most common situation I see. But you don't have to be a computer programmer to have a lot of stress eating. Just if you're overworked and overstressed, then you might be in a situation where you just feel out of control with food. You might know you have a problem where you're gaining a lot of weight and you just know you're having a problem. The one thing I'd like to say, and I want to address this in the post later on, is why you? Like, if you're working and your stress eating is related to work, you might wonder, why me? Like, why my stress eating and my other coworkers are not? That's where things get tricky. We can understand stress eating using the following definitions and criteria, which I'll get into a little bit. But we need to really understand why you're stress eating. And to do so in a way that doesn't make you feel bad about stress eating, because it happens. So, without further ado, let's just dive into things right now. The stress eating definition is when you are eating food in response to feelings and not eating food in response to hunger. So it's when you come home and you eat a big dinner, and then you have more work to do at night, and you're not even hungry, but you keep on eating. Keep on eating, even though you're not hungry. It's a classic definition of stress eating. And it also includes emotional eating. Because if you're eating because of what you're feeling instead of what your body is telling you, you're acting on your emotions. Not that that's a bad thing. I'm not here to judge you or shame you. Just let's name the truth here. You're acting on your emotions, and that's called emotional eating as well. So there's about 5 common symptoms of stress eating or emotional eating. These symptoms and signs are: you suddenly crave a very specific food. This is such an important one to know if you actually are stress eating. It's not like you want anything because you're hungry. You want something specific: peanut butter, chocolate, ice cream, you name it, and you want this specific thing. As opposed to when you're generally hungry, what will happen is that you just want anything, because you're just hungry for anything, really. So stress eating is specific. You keep eating after you're not even hungry. You eat fast and never slow down. You eat after a stressful event. And then number 5, you feel guilty, ashamed, or just really bad about this whole stress eating thing. So stress, now let's get into the causes of stress eating. The basic definition of stress is your current resources. Your brain evaluates your current resources and feels and evaluates that the situation at hand is too much for the current resources. So if you have a big deadline coming up and it's only due in 24 hours, all your resources, 24 hours of time, the concentration, that's not enough to get the deadline done in 24 hours. So when you see a deadline coming or a task at hand that's too much, then what's going to happen is you're going to get stressed. Your brain is going to release chemicals to get you in a energized state of being, and that is going to help close the distance between your perceived resources. The typical example of this is a mom whose child is like trapped under a car. I'm sure you've heard a story of this before. Mom's child trapped under the car, and she lifts up the car. She's stressed out. Her current strength is not sufficient to lift the car. So stress trigger, and then body releases endorphins. The endorphins and adrenaline and cortisol, it powers her up. It gives her a temporary boost of energy. She lifts up the car and saves her kid. Hooray! Whenever you have a big deadline, stress is going to be there, and it's going to release chemicals to help you focus. But here's the key. Most people, there's been many instances where women have actually lifted up the cars and saved their kids. Great. Usually their legs are shattered afterwards. The adrenaline makes them forget about their normal boundaries, and so they break all their bones when they lift up the car. The shins are going down on each other, legs shatter. It's horrible. I mean, they save their kids, so that's amazing, but like, we just want to realize that after stress hormones are released, we get a big crash. We get a big crash. And so this is crucial to understanding why taking care of stress is important from a productivity standpoint, which we'll get to in a minute. Like, working less will actually increase your productivity. So we'll get into that in just a minute. Because first, I want to just talk real quick about some common triggers for emotional eating: fatigue, habits, boredom, and stress. Those are the big four. And boredom is oftentimes, it's after the crash. So you get a big deadline and you exert all this energy to meet the deadline. Usually it's deadlines, by the way, but it could be any stressful event. It could be a relationship too. And afterwards you're bored. You just depleted yourself. And so you might be wondering, sometimes you might think like you're eating out of boredom, but oftentimes there's a stressful event and now you're bored. You're in this depleted state afterwards, and now you're eating. It's really crucial, if you think you're a boredom eater, that you look at what happened previously to feeling bored. So here's the thing about this post. We've been covering the definition of stress, which is eating in response to feelings. We've been covering what stress is. We've been covering some triggers for stress. And you might wonder, like, why me? Like, what specifically about me? Why do I have this problem? And there's a bunch of different answers for that. I'll go through them in a little bit. The point though is not why you. It's actually accepting that you have a problem with stress. And here are a few reasons why. You have a genetic predisposition towards anxiety. You didn't have a supportive family that taught you emotional coping skills. And this one's a hard pill to swallow. And then the third one is you have dieted excessively. Okay, so these are some 3 reasons. You got dieting, a family that wasn't supportive, and a genetic disposition. And oftentimes the real work is right here. The reason I'm making this video is right for this reason. It's to help. Stress eating can seem unfair. Eating problems can seem unfair. All around you, people are just normal with food. And you have this problem with food. And it sucks. Like, why you? Why you? Some of it might be genes. It's hard to accept these things. They're very ego-threatening. They threaten your ego. And oftentimes, the point of this video is to get you to accept stress eating by seeing stress eating as a blessing. That's right. I want you to see stress eating as a blessing. Because it is. It's a wake-up call. It is a wake-up call. You are not alone on this journey. There are many, many people out there who really struggle with stress eating and emotional eating. You're not alone. So don't feel bad. Don't feel like you're being singled out or anything like that, I know. But stress eating is a wake-up call. And if you heed the wake-up call, you will live a way better life. You need to see stress eating as a wake-up call, that you are out of balance, that something is off, and that it's time for you to love yourself more. That's the point of this. When you ask about why am I stress eating, the answer is to live a better life. You don't know how to live a better life. That's why you're stress eating. Now, if you kind of take that as a sign, I am stress eating right now, but this is a sign that I can live a better life. That's the right way to interpret it. And to not hate yourself, to not deny, to not belittle, to not look for a magic fix, just to look at stress eating and say, hey, I got a problem, but I can fix this problem. And in learning to fix this problem, I can probably become a better person. I could probably be healthier. I could probably get more work done. I could could probably have better relationships. I could just be more confident in my skin. I could feel normal around food. These things are possible, but you first have to just look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I have a problem with stress. And the thing about the families, my family was quote unquote supportive. They were there. They were financially and logically available to me. They never taught me about emotions. They never modeled emotions. They never connected with me. And I see this a lot. I'm an extremely hard worker just like my parents. I see a lot of extremely bright, intellectual computer programmers who are very talented at their job. And some of them are adamant that their parents were great. And I was too, for a long time. But then I started realizing that no, my parents were good parents, but they weren't good in every single way. And I did have supportive parents, but they weren't there for me emotionally. They were there physically and logically and analytically, but not emotionally. And so a lot of people are like that. And it's not your fault if you're a stress eater. It's really not. It's either your genes or you got tricked into dieting, you were ignorant about the effects of dieting and you got into dieting, and dieting also screwed you up. You might not have had supportive, emotionally available parents who modeled everything for you. It's not your fault that you're a stress eater, okay? It's not your fault. That's the one I want to communicate. But let's actually get into the big cure right now. This is a big level picture. The high level picture is something that I teach people, is productivity versus stress. You know already that you need to cook meals at home more, you need to buy more veggies, you need to exercise more, you need to sleep more, you need to meditate, blah, 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 blah. And your excuse is that you don't have enough time. You got a deadline, you got work, you're tired, yada, yada, yada. Well, when you say you don't have time, the research actually doesn't support you. So I need you to work with me here. If the research does not support your position, are you willing to change your position? Because here's what the research says. It says that when you are stressed out, temporarily you get more productivity. If you got a big deadline for a week, you'll get more productivity if you just boom, 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 just grind it out. Just work, 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 work. But if you keep going at a go, 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 go pace, you're going to burn out. You'll get sick. You'll get depressed. You'll have to stay home and take sick days. Or you'll just have a lot of distractions at work at some point. You'll fall off. Or you'll snap at your coworkers. You'll get pissed at them. You'll burn your relationships up. Either way, it is measurable that stress will harm your long-term productivity. Do you ever wonder why Google and all these different companies, they're focusing on wellness programs and making their employees happy? It's because of productivity. Don't think that these big companies are really caring for people. Just don't. They are caring about productivity. And they know paradoxically that instead of pushing, if they give their employees a little bit of a break, their long-term productivity goes up dramatically. Now there's a concept for this. It's called net productivity. It's what researchers use, and it's a guaranteed concept. So basically the big takeaway is that you need to take breaks during the day. And I mean real breaks. You need to actually recharge your battery. There's no substitute. You need to actually take some 15-minute breaks during the day. Actually stir some coffee, go on a walk, talk to a coworker. Give your mind a break, and you need to set some boundaries for yourself where you're not working, where you are just resting and recharging. And realize that this will increase your productivity. So that excuse, that rationale that you don't have enough time, it's not valid. And if you have that mindset that rest and rejuvenation will increase my productivity, then you will be able to find a way for you to better take care of yourself. And that's the big picture solution to stopping stress eating. Let me know if you have any questions. Namaste.